What's going on, guys? Hey, listen, today we've got a fragrance that is widely popular in the inspiration space. A lot of people either had this or have been considering this for quite some time, and it's inspired by one of the more popular fragrances, I think, in FragCom in the 30-year-old and down category. You've at least thought of this fragrance or a fragrance from this line once. So, in all honesty, I should have done this review a long time ago, but it's just copying a DNA from the designer market that I'm just not, at my age, not the most interested in. But a lot of people, let's not get it twisted, a lot of people are interested in this DNA, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So strap up. We might have a banger on our hands. All right. Welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the afternoon. Today from the house of Lataffa, this is ASAD Zanzibar. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. A lot of people, there was a lot of FOMO around this fragrance. And from the ASAD line, there always is, off of the success of ASAD, whether you like the fragrance or not, it was very well received and a lot of people purchased it. So when Zanzibar came around, people were hype. Why? I believe this fragrance was going after Le Beau. Don't quote me on that, but it's very apparent when you put this to your nose that it is chasing something in the Jean Paul Gaultier space. Not Le Male Elixir, definitely like Le Beau, ultra male-ish type of vibes. But as far as my research online, people said this was chasing Le Beau. Again, this is one of those weird fragrances that's around the 80% marker, and then it's kind of a twist. In the same way that ASAD is not a valid Sauvage Elixir clone. It's very close in about the 80% range, and then it goes on a twist, and it's a very good twist. And because of that, some people like it more than Sauvage Elixir. Zanzibar is a similar story. And before I, kind of spill the beans early, let me just stop myself right now and do an initial impressions and walk through the actual order of operations so I don't give away everything on the fragrance. I'm not going to put it to skin because, to be honest, I know personally that it does translate same on paper as it does on skin, a little bit warmer on skin, but nonetheless you get most of this juice. I'm not going to speak to the accuracy because I'm basically just going off of a field study of seeing what all the people I talk to are saying about this fragrance. And it's pretty much unanimous that it's around like somewhere in the 80% range in terms of closeness to that kind of tropical coconutty DNA. Most reminiscent of Le Beau, I'm pretty sure. But again, I don't want to speak to the closeness today. Today's not a closeness study. Is the fragrance worth purchasing? Now, there's a lot of factors that go into this because I know a lot of people that have Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances typically have more than one. They at least have two or three because if they like it, they love the line, they want to get something that's a little bit different DNA slightly. They want to go more sexy or more tropical or smoother. And my problem with a lot of the Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances is the better fragrances don't always have the best performance and vice versa. Again, the only fragrance I really respect at this point that I would wear, and I have tons of variations of this, both at the designer level and in the inspiration level, is Le Male Elixir. And so that is not this style DNA. This is a tropical island coconutty experience. Okay, initial impressions. It is pretty much an exotic tropical blast, mainly driven by coconut and vanilla. There are some really nice floral elements to this, but it is mostly a vanillic coconutty, a vanilla coconutty, like white or purple flower influence, white, purple florally kind of brush, giving it like some powder, some weight, and some freshness on the top of that, vanillic coconutty forwardness. And that's pretty much it. in terms of what you get out in the air. If you get close, you can probably make out a lot of the notes that it'll have from a nuance standpoint. But in the air, all you need to know is it is a vanilla coconut balm with a kind of white purple floral brush on the top, giving it a little bit of powderiness, even a creaminess in a way, but it's more powdery coconutty than creamy, but the creamy in the sense of like it has girth under it. And that's pretty much it to me. It takes you right to the tropical islands type of vibe. Let's look at the window here just to kind of see what exactly they're preaching here is the note combo. Up top, we have lavender. So there goes that purple flower and that powder. It's somewhat reminiscent of Dior Homme's style of iris rendering, but it's not going to remind you of Dior Homme per se. But it does have a kind of a cosmetic kind of like almost like a creamy and slightly dusted coconutty iris feel, which is very close to Dior Homme. Dior Homme's more seductive, romantic. This is more reminiscent and nostalgic of an island coconutty celebration hotel type of vibes, you know, kind of even like a suntan lotion-y kind of feel to it. But lavender and black pepper up top. There's no black pepper in this, guys. Not at all. Coconut water, iris, and salt. Ignore the salt. That's not apparent either. Vanilla and incense. I mean, you really got to get close to this fragrance to pick up incense. And really, it just kind of comes off as a more tamed vanilla. So it's not like so ice cream vanilla bright. It's more of like a subdued irisy vanilla. But for the purposes of this video, I would say just disregard the incense, salt, and black pepper. This is entirely a coconut, iris, vanilla fragrance brushed in lavender and maybe the tiniest 5-10% of incense way in the back, but out in the air you don't really get that. You get this kind of very fresh open top, and then the closer you get to the individual wearing this, the more you get kind of this creamy, powdery emphasis on coconut, iris, and vanilla. Very well made fragrance nonetheless. I don't think there's anything special about this fragrance in terms of like anything else to talk about from a note standpoint. However, it's a good fragrance. Like if this is the DNA that you're chasing, I tend to want to give it somewhere between an 8 or a 9. It's not insanely signature. You know, it's typical in the fact that it's iris, coconut, and vanilla. It's fairly linear, but those individual notes can be individually felt as well as the lavender. And so for that kind of formulation, in DNA as a standalone, it's really nice. The performance is not nuclear, but nuclear level performance. I would say this is easily 10 to 12 hours, no question, on minimal sprays. I think this is one of those fragrances where you get like 2 to 2.5 hours per spray on this. So, I mean, you could go light, you could go, 2-3, you could go 3-4, you could go 4 to 6. I wouldn't go above 6 sprays with this because, I mean, it's just a monster projector, insane level of sillage. And I wouldn't expect anything else less from the ASAD line. All of their fragrances are 10, 12-hour fragrances with, 3 to 6 feet of sillage, monster projection and great performance. So it's cool that they're matching that energy with this Zanzibar. As a tropical fragrance, guys, this is a nice utility fragrance. I think this is casual. I hesitate to call it upscale casual because it's extremely playful. It's tropical island coconutty. There's not a lot to the fragrance to really dress up complexity with it other than the iris and the lavender. Had the black pepper and incense been more present here, then you could kind of make a case for like a 9 out of 10 fragrance because it's got a lot of dimension to it. But I don't really get the black pepper, salt, or incense by very much at all. Nothing to really speak of. So then it just becomes kind of a tropical fragrance with some texture. But as that, it's a really nice utility. You could go casual, date, I don't want to say date night, maybe day date, hotel, pool party, beach, island vibes. Anything near an island, near water, anything celebratory, outdoor, you know, it's nice. I think a fragrance like this leans like, I'm gonna be real with you, like 25 and down. You know, I know that there are gonna be some older men that want a tropical feel. But I just think it is so playful and lacks a lot of dimension. It kind of loses its age as you go up. It begins to feel overly playful in a way that feels out of character to the age, if that makes sense. Um, Alternatives to this, I don't know. It's reminiscent of LeBeau. It's reminiscent of Eros in a lot of ways. Um, do I know of any kind of inspiration fragrances that are tropical? Probably, but you know, for the $20-$30 price point, this is a steal. Because it gets you to the dance. It's quality. There's not a lot of synthetics. It is fairly basic, but in its basicness, it's got high-end ingredients. So if you have anything tropical, this is redundant to me. Again, if you have anything reminiscent of coconut, iris, vanilla, lavender, that kind of combo, mainly the vanillic coconut side of it, but most of those fragrances will have either lavender or iris in it just because it always pairs well. But if you have anything from Jean Paul Gaultier outside Le Male Elixir, or you have like a tropical fragrance, or you have Eros or something like that, this would totally be redundant. But if you don't have a fragrance yet in your collection that kind of veers off into the tropical side of things, this is a heavy utility fragrance. Again, I think for the younger people, they'll like it because it'll kind of fit the party vibe, the pool party vibe, the hotel vibe, the outdoors vibe very nicely. And it's a monster performer. So it's something you could put a few sprays on. You don't got to decant it. You're off to the races pretty much for the rest of the day. It has a youthful quality to it. As older men, or as an older man, I really wish they would have emphasized a little more emphasis on, emphasized a little more emphasis. That's hilarious. Put a little more emphasis on the incense and the black pepper. I don't really care for the salt. I mean, whatever, the salt note. But if they would have just ramped up some more incense and black pepper, I think you could have really had a special fragrance that had a little bit more dimension than this. But nonetheless, I would call this, me personally, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's slightly above average. To people 25 and down, they'll probably give this a 8 or a 9 comfortably. But yeah, it's definitely a solid utility fragrance, and it's an occasion-based fragrance. It would shine in colder climates, aerated climates, outdoors and things like that. But I think even if the sun is out, you can wear this because it's just a monster performer. And yeah, I can't think of any like clone alternatives off bat that for the price and all things considered would be like better than this. There would just be fragrances like really close to this or fragrances that meet this where it is. But this was a great release from them, guys. Again, you'd have to have a very specific need for a fragrance like this, but it checks all of the boxes. The only thing it doesn't really check is like insane signature fragrance because it doesn't it lacks a little bit of complexity and it's just a tropical fragrance. But if you don't have that style of fragrance for the younger crowd, it could be a signature scent for sure. I think that's everything, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe. More importantly, turn on the notification bell so you can stay tuned with everything we got going on. We drop episodes every single day in all kinds of different entertainment and informative categories for FragCom. And let me know if you have any questions about Zanzibar. I'd love to answer any for you, and I hope this was helpful for you if you were considering this fragrance. Again, I think it's a solid 8 out of 10, slightly above average fragrance. That has a lot of good utility and phenomenal performance. And I even think in some ways, if you're not a big Jean Paul Gaultier fan, this is a better fragrance than like a LeBeau, just off of performance alone. But I don't know, that's really subjective. I just wanted to help you understand if you should consider this fragrance, and I think you guys absolutely should. This is the Scent Bubble. Have a great week. This was Lataffa's ASAD's Zanzibar. It's a pretty good fragrance. Take care.